Hello people, how are things? I'm out in the hills here having a ramble about on a beautiful moonlit night. I just said I'd put a few thoughts down in a recording. Just moving outside of my comfort zone a bit. I normally write stuff, but I said I'd try just speaking off the top of my head and see how it goes. And I want to give a shout out to great men like Philip Dwyer, Derek Bly and Mike Connell and others who've gone before me. They've done some fantastic work for the good of this country. So what I wanted to talk about is the media, also known as, or as I call them, the scum media. The first thing I'd say about them is you would think that their job is to investigate, to dig deep, to find out what people in power are up to, and report on that, report on corruption, expose that to the public, and keep people in power in check. That's what they're supposed to do. That's the fourth column, but that is totally broken down, and the reason that it's broken down is because the media are bought and paid for. Among the mainstream media, there is no independence anymore. They're owned by conglomerates, the likes of Mediahouse, and the reason they all speak off the same hymn sheet and give the same consistent message in all the media outlets is not because they're telling the truth, but because they're speaking off the same script. So we saw this during the pandemic. We're all in lockstep, and speaking of lockstep, people should try googling Rockefeller and lockstep, see what they find. So during the pandemic, the media's job was to terrify the living daylights out of people, convince them of a pandemic that didn't really exist, a disease that was no worse than the flu, and that was reflected in the very, very small numbers of excess deaths. So they terrified us, and they convinced us to wear masks, take the jabs, using very dirty tactics. They divided people, the masked against the unmasked, had the masked crowd hurling abuse at the unmasked, and I experienced that myself. I was attacked by a number of people. You also had the jabbed versus the unjabbed. I was also attacked on that front. And we had people like Leo Varadkar telling us that it was a pandemic of the unvaccinated. It turned out to be a massive lie. And now, as warned by the so-called conspiracy theorists, or nothing of the sort, they deal in facts, not crazy conspiracies and dodgy chat rooms. No, they look up information that the media don't dare tell you, because to do that will be to expose the plans of their paymasters. So we had the good old divide and conquer tactic used during the so-called pandemic, and now we have it during this latest mass immigration issue. So it started off, the ball got rolling in Eastwall, thanks to Malachy Steenson, fair play to him. The man with courage of his convictions. He got out in the streets and very wisely avoided associating with any political groups, and his grassroots movement has grown and grown in strength, and now it's snowballing. And the media, in response, have gone into panic mode. They're pulling out all the stops, using all the dirty tactics they can find. There's name calling. You have racists, xenophobes, far right extremists, hateful people, all the slurs they can find. They've resorted to fabricating news. You had the infamous Kitty Holland story. Her turned out, after claiming that she had witnessed an attack by men with baseball bats and sticks and dogs and the whole lot, And she claimed there was crashing and banging and all this, and it turned out she didn't witness the story at all. She claims to have got a number of photos, but nothing's been released, and she claims it's for legal reasons. The whole thing is either fabricated or massively exaggerated. Meanwhile, genuine attacks on Irish people by foreigners go ignored by the media. So the media are gaslighting us. There is a real problem. They are telling us we're extremists and racists. We've got to be silenced. The government is destroying this country with immigrants. We've seen this in so many European countries, in Sweden, Germany, Britain, Denmark, France, you name it, where prime ministers have come out and admitted that mass immigration and integration of foreign cultures does not work. So about, I think it was like 6 months ago, just as the immigration thing was kicking off, the government started a campaign, an anti-racism campaign, in which they tried to convince the Irish people that we have racist tendencies and we need to be re-educated. And you had only very recently Dermot Ferreter in the Irish Times telling us that the latent racism of the Irish people has now been exposed. So this is classic gaslighting. They're trying to tell us that immigration will enrich society and everything will be rainbows and unicorns. They're all good people. It's utter nonsense. Of course, the majority of these people are good people. But there are also people coming to the country in huge numbers. Incidentally, they are being bussed in to various centres around the country, usually in the middle of the night, with no consultation. Busloads of men who are obviously not Ukrainian. There's no women and children to be seen. And this is being covered up. And the media keep telling us, no, it's all Ukrainian women and children fleeing war. And anyone who says otherwise is a hateful racist. So they're lying to us. They're gaslighting us. Essentially, the government and the media are at war against us. There's no other way to put it. We've seen from other countries the increase as a result of mass immigration. We've seen increases in crimes, rapes, murders, bombings, particularly in Sweden. Seem to have got the worst of it, where rape has gone off the charts. Bombings, daily bombings between rival gangs of immigrants. The media should be reporting on that. They're not reporting on that, and anyone who dares to point it out is a hateful racist. That's, what you get for pointing out the truth of it. So essentially what I'm trying to say here is that what you need to do is just ask questions. So a very simple question: why are we seeing busloads of men who are obviously not Ukrainian being dropped off in DP centres under the cover of darkness? Why is that happening? Why are 40% of asylum seeker applicants entering the country with fake documents or no documents, having got onto planes or boats or whatever way they're coming in with documents, and then when they get here, these documents are, we've been told, they are lost. They're not being lost, they're being destroyed. And they're going into the asylum application process, and it's taking years. There's a massive backlog. Meanwhile, the taxpayer is paying millions, and we're supposed to shut up and say nothing about it. Meanwhile, we have homeless people on the streets, something like 11,500. It's been going on for decades. Nothing's been done about it, little or nothing's been done about it. The reason people are on the streets very often, because they don't want to go to accommodation, because the places are full with drug addicts. What are the government doing for these people? Little or nothing. What are the government doing for immigrants? Absolutely everything they can. They are spending billions on immigrants. A very simple question: why so much effort for immigrants? Why so little for Irish people? The answer is very, very simple. The government hate us. And the media are doing the dirty work for the government by trying to convince us that we, ordinary people, are the problem. We are the racists. We are the ones with the problem. And we should just shut up and put up. People need to start asking questions. Question everything. Over and out. Thanks.